Welcome back again, guys. We are going to be playing around with some Pygame today, and I'm going to teach you the basics of it. By the end of today, you are going to be able to use simple shapes, stuff like this, render colors, draw shapes, draw lines, draw circles, that kind of stuff, okay? So today's just so I can go through the basics of it, to get you used to using it, so you can start programming your own games with it, okay? So without further ado, let's get on with it. Okay, so all I've done is file new window, and I've just saved my my Python file here, and we're going to get going right now. So first thing you're going to want to do is you need to import Pygame. Now, in order to use this module, you obviously need to have it installed. So if you haven't got Pygame installed, I suggest you go and look. I'll put some links in the description for actually installing Pygame. It's a pretty straightforward process, but you will need that in order for any of this stuff to work. So it's a great little library, has all sort of bits and pieces that you can use to actually build games with it. So if you are here, that means you have Pygame installed, and we're going to start off by importing the stuff that we want from Pygame. So we're going to import Pygame, we're going to import sys as well, because we use some of that stuff. So in order to use Pygame, we need to initialize it. So we're going to call Pygame dot init, and this will now let us actually use all of the functions and stuff like that for Pygame. Now, first things first that we're going to do is, in order to actually render something, we have to draw it to the screen, and obviously our screen refreshes at frames per second, so we need to draw it a certain amount of frames per second. So in order to do this, we're going to set up two variables. We're going to set an FPS variable, so something like 30 frames per second is fine for this. When we get into actually making some other games, we'll see how this can actually slow games down, speed games up, and that kind of stuff from there. But just for rendering like a static image, 30 frames per second is actually fine. And then we're actually going to look at this variable, so frames per sec. And what this will actually do is we're going to grab the Pygame.timeClock, and what this will do is this will allow us to tick through that amount of frames per second. Okay, this isn't going to get used until the final render loop though, so for the time being, all you need to know about is that you just need these in order to display your images for the correct amount of frames per second. Okay, so we're going to move straight on now, and we're going to actually start with some colors. So colors in Pygame, most web-based bits and pieces are actually stored as RGB colors. So the amount of red you want in it, the amount of green you want in it, and the amount of blue you want in it, the three mixed together to actually get you your overall color. So you can actually look up RGB colors online. Literally just type in RGB colors and then kind of use a slider to get the values that you want. I've already picked up some values here, so I'm going to do purple equals, and that is, not 255, 222 for my red, 0 for my green, and 255 for my blue. So these values go from 0 to 255, so you won't get anything above 255. I'm going to put down a number of different colors now, so I will just write these in, and then we'll jump back to this in a sec. So there we go. I've just got a load of different random colours there. We're going to use some of these, and obviously you can call them what you want. Obviously it's worth making sure that you can recognise the variable names, so don't just be calling them all X and Y and stuff like that, because it's going to be hard for you to recognise what colours what. And we're going to use these colours in a minute when we actually start drawing. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up the window to make a little window actually pop up and be displayed. So Pygame actually has a nice set of functions for us to actually use here. So we set a variable called window. It's going to equal Pygame.display.setMode, and then we just give it a width and a height in those double brackets like that. So this here will actually create our window for us, and it's going to be 300 pixels tall by 300 pixels wide. And then we can just fill that in by doing window.fill, and by choosing one of the colors that we programmed earlier. So that is going to fill in that window with light blue when it comes to it. This last bit here just actually adds, so at the top here in the bar, so at the moment I've got drawing tutorial, when I run it, this next line of code is actually going to put some text in there for us, okay? So pygame.display.setCaption, and then we just pass it a string, what we want actually at the top. And that is it for the window. So the next part is actually drawing the shapes. So what we're going to do, we're going to draw the shapes, and then we're going to create a loop which will actually update the display and put the shapes onto the display at the amount of frames that we've actually selected at the top here. Okay, we're going to get into too much detail with that. What we're going to do is we're going to look at some shapes now. So we're going to first off start off with drawing some circles. So if we do pygame.draw and then we choose circle, so this is our straightforward drawing a circle, and we just need to plug in the arguments from here. So in order to draw a circle, we need to tell Pygame where we're drawing it. So we're drawing it to the window, the one we just displayed. So that's where we want to draw it to. We want to give it a color. So we've actually written down all of our colors here. So we're going to choose whichever color that we want, and then we need to give it a position. So we're going to make it 50 by 50. So from the top left corner, it's going to be 50 in and 50 down. So that's going to be the center point of my circle there. And then finally, we're just going to give it a size. So 30 will be absolutely fine. So it's like a radius from there. And I'm going to draw a couple more circles following this same formula. So I'm going to get a circle in each one of my four corners. So this one here is going to be in the top left corner. I'm going to do on top right, bottom left and bottom right. So these are all my four circles done. I'm going to do top left, top right, bottom left and bottom right. So take note of those coordinates, they're all the same size. So those are my circles. Let's have a look at drawing some other shapes as well. So now I'm actually going to draw some lines. So I'm going to draw some lines which go down the middle and then across, sort of like in like a crosshair kind of style. So I do draw.line, and my line takes the arguments of where do I want to draw it. So again, I want to draw it to the window. What color do I want to use? So whichever color that I've chosen to use. And then it takes the coordinates of the start point and the coordinates of the end point and then the line thickness, okay? So I want the start point to be like up the top of the screen here. So that would be like 0 and then 150 to be in the middle. So my start point is going to be 0 because I don't want it to come down at all. So it's going to be the very top of the screen, and then 150 because my window is 300 pixels wide. 150 is going to be in the very middle. So that's going to be my start point. It's going to be there. Before I draw the thickness of it, I need to do the end point of it. So my end point, like I was just saying there, needs to be down the bottom here. So it needs to be 300. And then again, it's going to be in the middle, so 150. So 300 is going to put it at the bottom here, and then 150 is going to put it all the way to the top. So I'm going to have a start point at the top here, and it's going to draw it all the way down to the bottom here. Now I give it a thickness, so like 15. So that's my one which is going to go down the page, and now I'm going to draw one which is going to go across the page. And there we have my my lines, so my two lines which are going to go down the page and across the page. So the final thing I'm going to draw here, just to show you, is a rectangle. So again, it's going to be pygame.draw, and it's going to be .rect. And the rectangle takes an argument of a window. It takes the argument of a colour. So what colour have I not used yet? I think I've used the regular blue. And then it takes 4 numbers, okay? So it takes the top left X, the top left Y, and then it takes a width and a height. So basically, if you think about a square, you're giving the coordinates of the top left corner. So if I was thinking about my window here, I'm giving the coordinates of this top left corner. And from that top left corner, I'll then get a width and a height to then draw it. So I first will give the coordinates of this top left corner, and then I give a width, then I give a height to be able to then draw the rectangle from there. So my rectangle, my coordinates of that top left corner is going to be 100 and 100. And then let's do a width of 100 and a height of 100 as well. And then a line thickness of 5, okay? So these are all of my shapes drawn. All I need to now do is actually render them. So in order to render them, we're going to do a little while loop, and we're going to have it so it goes while true. We're going to update the display. So we're going to use the Pygame function called pygame.update. Pygame.display update. Display.update. And then we also need to make sure, so at the moment, this just happens forever, and the only way we'll be able to get out of it is by crashing the whole program. So what we want to make sure we can do is we want to make sure we can click on the little X. So we can do that by using an event. So we can do for event in pygame.event.get. So pygame.event.get actually listens to everything that's happening at the moment. Are there mouse movements being made? Are there buttons being clicked? What's happening with the computer, okay? And anything that happens, it returns them as a list. So what we're going to check, basically we're going to check in here, and if in the list that gets returned, so basically this is continually checking, it keeps on checking, and if that list ever contains the event quit, then we're going to kill the program, okay? So all we do for this one is we're saying that if the event.type, so the type of event is equal to quit, then we're going to stop the program. Okay, we're going to do pygame.quit, and we're going to do we're going to exit. So system.exit. Okay, so we are using pygame.event.get to get a list of events. If any of those event types are the same as quit, so if that happens, it means the user has clicked on the X. If then quit the program and exit Python basically from there. Now, not in the for loop over here on the left hand side, so in line with the for loop. If that doesn't happen, we want to be updating we want to be ticking the display basically from here, yeah? So we can do that by doing frames per sec, which is currently our clock, and we want our clock to be updated at 30 frames per sec. So we're going to tick it, and we're going to tick it by frames per second there, okay? It's probably worth reading around these a little bit more, especially when we get into actually making some games, but that is the long and short of it. And now if I run this, we should have an error, which is good. So it's always good to get errors, obviously. So let's have a look and see what I've done. So that should be locals, not local. So immediately on my first line there, locals, not local. So let's run it again. So there we go. We've got our window popping up there. Okay. So have a play around with this. Get used to drawing in Python. Get used to using those Pygame colors and things like that, and a little render loop to actually draw those items. And then you'll be ready to actually start looking at some of the more advanced games that we're going to be doing in the next few videos. So I hope you really enjoyed that, and I will see you next time.